So for purposes of this demonstration, I will use myself, and I'll show you how a typical ETD submission is completed. In our case, I'll go ahead and click on this. Go down to Purdue University. You should only have to do this once. And then I'll type in my information along with my password. And it may take a few moments to come up. Okay, in my case, I will go ahead and just go ahead and look at a submission that I've already begun. But again, this should give you a good idea of what to expect when you do your actual submission. So in this case, we'll go to Continue Submission. The first page you'll see is a whole series of instructions. Please read these instructions carefully. They are there for a purpose. If you read through them carefully, they should answer all of your questions about the items that you'll see during the course of your submission. These deal with copyright registration, open access, additional thesis copies, complimentary RefWorks account, so on and so forth. Again, please read this through carefully. The reason being is that if you don't do it and you start punching buttons without looking at what you're doing, you may end up owing money to ProQuest that you weren't planning on paying. If you do run into that kind of situation, we can get your money back and cancel your order, but it does take time, and we would prefer not to do it in the first place. So in this case, we've read through everything carefully, and we've also checked on copyright permissions, fees, so on and so forth. So we just click Continue. Now, on the left-hand side, you see a number of different little boxes that are already checked. In this case, these are boxes that show you where you're at in the process. So it gives you a running tab of how you're doing. And it also has internal links, so if you do need to go back and change something during the course of your submission, you can go back and do that. Now on this page, you will see your publishing options that are offered to you by ProQuest. You will have two. One is called Traditional Publishing, which is the option that most candidates do request. This makes your work widely available, and it does allow you to receive royalties if you make a certain number of sales per year. The other option is for what's called open access. This means that you want the broadest possible dissemination of your work, as well as free global access to electronic copy of your work via the internet. However, you do not receive royalties as part of this option, and further, there is a $95 fee connected with this process. Most candidates, in our experience, do not request this, but again, we neither encourage nor discourage your selection of this option. In any event, you go ahead and pick whatever type of publishing you want. Again, in my case, I'm going to go Traditional Publishing. Then you go down to Select Publishing Options. Most candidates do want major search engines to find their work, but if they don't, then you can select that as well. Perhaps you have a journal article that you're working on and you don't want people accessing your work. If you do have any questions about what this particular area entails, there are informational links. We strongly recommend you click on all links that are informational. This will really speed up the process for you and make things more understandable. Access options. This is where you can request a delay of publication through ProQuest if you wish. As stated on the screen here, if you do want to delay your work, access to the full text of your work will be delayed for the period of time that you specify. The citation abstract of your work, however, will be available online and may be available through your institutional repository, in other words, EPUBs. So the bottom line is that during your delay period, your citation and abstract will be available online for viewing, but not your thesis. So if you do want your work to be available in ProQuest as soon as published, which is what most candidates request, then you click this option. However, if you do want a delay, then you would need to fill in the appropriate boxes below. You will automatically receive 6 months, 1 year, or 2-year option if you wish. If you do want a longer embargo, or if you want a specific date, for example, then you would indicate that in a note to us, and we can put that in for you on our end. Again, there is informational links right here, so we strongly encourage you to read that first before you make your selection. And then again, you can also indicate why you want that delay. Most people just say publication pending with another publisher. In my case, I don't want any delay, so we'll go ahead and proceed forward. You will then just see your publishing agreement. There's one for traditional publishing and also one for open access. Please read this carefully. However, the key portion of this would be this section right here where it talks about you granting non-exclusive rights to ProQuest for reproduction, distribution, delay, and transmittal of your work. Please note that if you're publishing through ProQuest, that allows you to still publish with other people. So ProQuest does not have exclusive rights to your work. It's non-exclusive, which means they're only getting certain limited rights for the reasons that we just mentioned. So please read through this carefully. We also strongly encourage you to make a hard copy of this and keep it for future reference. That way, if for some reason you cannot access your account afterwards, you will have a copy of this agreement. You must accept this agreement if you wish to continue forward. Please make sure you do that. If you don't do it, we cannot send your thesis forward to ProQuest until you do accept the agreement. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and accept it. Next screen is contact information. As you can see, some of this is already filled in for you. That happened when you requested your account. So please make sure that the information here is correct, that your address information is correct, and if your permanent mailing address is the same as your current address, then all you need to do is just click this box right here and it automatically fills in for you. So once you're confident that everything looks good on this page, go ahead and save and continue. Next one is where you start getting into talking about your thesis details. In this case, the title of my thesis is Writing a Thesis is Fun. And then you need to put in the year that your manuscript was completed as well as the year your degree was awarded. Normally it's the same year, but it can be different years depending on your circumstances. In my case, I'm a PhD, and I selected that from a drop-down menu. And my department is history. And again, there's a wide range of options for you in terms of departments. If you don't see your departmental information on this drop-down menu, let us know immediately so we can get that changed for you. Next, you put in your advisor information. In this case, if you have a committee chair, which you should, or committee chairs, then you would put their names in this section right here. You do not have to repeat them underneath in this section, but just put in the rest of your committee members. Next, you would put in a description of the content of your thesis. And so you have up to 3 categories that you can insert. In my case, I just put history, but you have additional subject categories as well. Again, if you don't see anything, try to get as close as you can. We are limited by what ProQuest provides us. We realize that the content of your thesis may not be fully covered by the options provided, but try to get as close as you can. If you want to put in keywords or phrases, you can also do that as well in this section right here. In my case, I just put history. And then abstract, you can drop in your abstract in this section here. What we recommend is that, especially if you're using, for example, Word, you can just copy off your abstract, and then you'll have it handy when you do come to the section, and then you can just drop it in. Very quick and easy. However, when you do that, make sure that your abstract does come out in the format that you wish it to appear in, because sometimes it may not be properly indented, or spacing may not be correct, or sometimes even characters don't appear correctly. So again, be very careful when you do this and thoroughly check it to make sure that everything appears as it should. Finally, on this page, primary language for probably 99.9% of candidates, it will be English. However, we occasionally do see theses that are submitted in other languages. For example, from languages and cultures, we see Spanish, French, German, so on and so forth. So just put the appropriate primary language that your thesis will appear in. Once you feel confident about everything, then you can go ahead and save and continue. This is where you actually put in your thesis. You'll upload it. You need to upload it as a PDF. If you don't do this, it will not, first of all, it won't accept, or it may not come out correctly. So please read the instructions as stated here. Make sure your fonts are embedded. Please do not use any security settings because ProQuest cannot process encrypted files. Also note that the maximum file size is up to 1 gig. Although in most cases, theses that we see are usually much, much smaller than that. Usually about 5 to 10 megs is a typical size. If you do run into uploading problems, read this section right here. This may explain and give you some tips on how to fix your problem. In this case, we've already uploaded an existing thesis, and that thesis would look like this basically. That's the thesis like that. So it should be fully legible and no other obvious problems. And then the final section is primary language. For most candidates, it will be in English. However, we do occasionally see theses submitted in other languages, particularly from languages and cultures, Spanish, French, German, so on and so forth. So if you do have an alternate language, then you can of course fill that in from the drop-down menu. But for 99.9% of candidates, you will use English. Once you feel confident about everything on this particular page, then you can go ahead, save and continue. The next page is where you will actually upload your PDF thesis. Again, you must upload your work as a PDF. If you don't have a PDF file, you can use an online converter, but what most people use is Adobe Acrobat Professional. Please be mindful of the PDF requirements required by ProQuest. Fonts must be embedded. Make sure that you have no security settings. Encrypted files cannot be processed for publishing. The maximum file size is up to 1 gig. However, most candidates submit files roughly, maybe no more than 5 or 10 megs. In the event that you're unable to upload your file into your ETD submission, be mindful of the following items, such as there may be embedding problems, perhaps Adobe Acrobat problems, so on and so forth. So if you do run into any problems that you cannot resolve, then please contact the Thesis and Dissertation Office, and we'll certainly do our best to assist you. You will upload your thesis as a complete PDF, and we've already uploaded, in this case, one that's previously been submitted to us. Also, if you have any copyright permission documents to submit, then you would indicate that as well. In this case, let's say if you do, then you can go ahead and add a file. Normally you would upload this again as a PDF scan. You're not locked down to just one. You can add any number of items. We've sometimes seen as many as 5 or 10 permissions. So you would just go ahead and upload them as necessary and then save and continue. In our case, we don't have any, so we'll go ahead and save and continue. Once you have uploaded your thesis, the next page that you'll see is for supplemental files. This is purely an optional page. For example, if you perhaps have audio files, video files, spreadsheets, so on and so forth, you can include them as supplemental files. These files will be made available in ProQuest when they publish your thesis and when your work is published. Please be mindful of the supplemental file requirements as described on the screen here, particularly when it comes to something that maybe someone else holds rights to, such as third-party software. However, you can upload an Excel spreadsheet that, for example, and that would be perfectly fine. Make sure you zip large files, and you do have size limitations for single files or for all files, certainly no more than a gig. As far as the number of files that you can add, in this case you will immediately see 2 that you can do, but you can actually go down here and add supplemental files. I believe we've seen as many as 20 in some cases. So in most cases there should be enough space for you to add as many files as you need for your needs. So once you've done that, then you can go ahead and save and continue. In my particular case, I don't have any supplemental files, so I'll just go ahead and proceed. The next screen you'll see is for Notes to Administrator. This is a purely optional section, but if you have any special notes for us, maybe you have special contact information, perhaps you're traveling or whatever, and you want us to contact you at that particular place, then please indicate that here in this particular section. You do have up to a maximum of 200 characters that you can use for your message. In my case, I don't really have anything, so I'll go ahead and press on. This is for registering copyright. Please do not confuse copyright with registration of copyright. They are 2 different things. You as an author, unless you have signed over your copyright to someone else, you will be the copyright holder upon creation of your work in a tangible form. This section, however, is for registration of copyright, and it does give you some additional legal protections. For example, you can protect your dissertation and then become immediately eligible for statutory damages and attorney's fees in the event of a copyright infringement lawsuit. It also allows for your work to be published in an official government publication showing that you do own that copyright. So again, read all this information carefully. If you do want copyright registration, then by all means, you can request it. But again, you will pay ProQuest directly for this. We are not involved in the payment process, so you will need to provide credit card information for that. In my case, I don't want copyright registration, which is what most candidates opt for, and I do not want to file for copyright registration. So in my case, I'll go ahead and proceed onwards. The next section is if you wish to order, for example, print copies through ProQuest. And if you wish to do that, then ProQuest provides information about the services that they offer. And again, if you want to order any, they provide prices, so on and so forth. That should be helpful to you. What we will say again is that we neither encourage nor discourage your taking advantage of this option, but in our experience, very few candidates request this. The reason for this is because they may require 6 to 8 months to receive these hard copies. If you do want hard copies, we would suggest you contact Boiler Copymaker and the Purdue University Memorial Union. They provide very good products for competitive prices, and they have much quicker turnaround. So in my case, I simply will say decline, do not order. This screen shows you basically what amounts to a subtotal. This shows you what you've put into your submission so far, and so what we need you to do is take a look at it. If it looks good, go ahead and proceed onward with the rest of your submission process. If you need to make changes, then you have that option as well. And again, you do have internal links that you can go back and fix individual sections if you need to. So in our case, everything looks pretty good to us, so we'll go ahead and submit dissertation thesis. Okay, you'll receive a response indicating that it has been submitted, but that is not the end of the process. Please make sure that you go to the complete end of the ETD submission process. If you don't do this, you may think that you've actually submitted a thesis, but your thesis will appear to us as what we call draft status, which means that we still cannot access it. So if that's the case, then we will have to contact you and let you know that you do need to go to the end of the process. In any event, this particular page will again say that your thesis has been at least officially submitted, and if you owe any money, then it will indicate how much you owe. Again, any selection of options that are offered by ProQuest will be handled via credit card transaction directly to those people. So if everything looks good, then go ahead and click Done, and then it says Submission Complete. Read through this section carefully, and then go ahead and sign out. This completes your submission process.